I never had mentors in the first 5 to figure that out. We didn't do that, which is another reason for failure. But in these, absolutely, I count on my teams and my mentors. I know now that I can't do it by myself. I was always very isolated before, trying to do everything myself and figure it out because I'm smart. I can figure it out. But honestly, that's not the right approach. We
Right.
all need other people in our lives. We need our coach. We need, people who can help us put systems. We need people, the financial people, the accountant end is really important. All of those people help form your team because business is a team sport. It is not an individual sport. And it's also not a sprint. It's a marathon. So keep going.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us on another episode of Entrepreneurial Truth. On today's show, we have Nancy Benet with us. Nancy, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
Likewise, happy to have you. Okay, so can you tell our audience a little bit about who you are, what you do, and who you serve?
Okay. So I am a CPA in the United States, and I have a very successful CPA firm. And so what I did was turn that into an education platform for entrepreneurial women, generally women over 40 who really are coming to this midlife place where they wake up and go, hey, this isn't what I signed up for. This isn't really what I wanted from life. And so they're trying to pivot into becoming entrepreneurs. And I love working with newer entrepreneurs or seasoned entrepreneurs. We do both in our accounting firm. But what I found was that I was saying the same things over and over and over again to newer people and the seasoned ones. And so we just started making classes, online classes from all of that information. So it's more accessible, and it's just been so much fun, such a great project. And I feel like I really have a good grasp on what the small business owner is going through because my first 5 businesses were complete and total failures. Wow. And I woke up one day myself in my mid 40s and had 4 small children, no job, no income, $100 a week in child support, and $650,000 in debt from the previous business failures. And all of that happened because I had no mentors. I had no one helping me. I had no one saying, here, Nancy, here's how you do it. And so I don't want that to happen to anybody else because it was really a big, steep hill to climb and get out of that.
Wow. I love that you shared all of that right now in the beginning because there's so much to unpack. So let's start from the beginning. How did you unpack that? Was the first step getting a mentor?
So how did I get out of that, work my way out of that? Yeah, that's a really good question. And the truth of it is that I made a decision. And that decision was to stop being a victim. Ooh. I think we in our society tend to operate as victims. It's easy if we're in a bad place to go blaming somebody else. I could have blamed my husband or my mother or the economy or any of those things. But in that moment, I made a choice. And that choice was, I'm not going to wait for somebody else to rescue me. This is my life. I am in charge of it. And because I'm in charge of it, I landed here in this bad place. And so I'm going to have to get myself out. And that decision to stop being a victim and become a powerful advocate for myself in my own life and clean up this mess was the catalyst for all of it. And that, believe it or not, opened so many doors that you couldn't open otherwise. Because when you make a decision like that, when you really say, I'm going to fix this, I'm not waiting anymore, I know that I can do this, and step into your power, then it moves mountains. And that, I think, is a really huge pivot point for a lot of people, because when you do step into that power, it also comes with a lot of responsibility,
right?
But it's very, very powerful.
Right. Can you go back to that moment when you decided, okay, I'm here, I don't have the resources, I have all of this debt, I have these kids. I know you said you shifted into your power, but what helped you and pulled you out? Was it a mentor? Was it a book you read? Was what actual tool did you use to pull yourself out of that?
It wasn't one tool. It was baby steps. That's it. So the first thing I did was tell somebody.
Okay.
I think when we're in distress that way, we keep it very quiet.
Mm-hmm.
And it's true for entrepreneurs too. We don't want anybody to see our weakness,
Mm-hmm.
but opening that door, cracking it open and telling somebody and showing just a little bit of light on the problem really helps to clarify the problem. Number one, it's not as big and bad and ugly and scary as you really thought. And you can take some baby steps toward it. It took me a giant amount of time to get in that spot.
Right.
And I knew that it was going to take a lot of time to get out. But I decided that I was just going to do it anyway. And I was just going to put my head down and work. And the work is just baby steps. It's not like trying to solve the whole problem at once.
Mm-hmm.
It's just baby steps. And so I got sued and got some papers delivered. I'm like, what is this? Ooh. So I had to call a friend of mine. I reached out. And this is important because your tribe is important, especially in business. You need other people. You can't know everything, be everything, do everything. So I had to reach out to somebody that was an attorney. She was a friend of mine. And I had to open the door and shine light on this ugly thing that I had created that nobody else knew about. And I asked her to help me. And she was so kind and so gentle and so loving and provided so much help. That one win of overcoming that thing gave me more confidence to now tackle the next one. And then the next one. And it did take years to come out of that. But the place that I've landed from that has been so spectacular as compared to where I could have been if I'd stayed in that place. You can't even compare.
Wow. Wow. And then coming out of that space, getting through that process, right? What made you want to create another business and not go and work for someone?
Yeah, I didn't want to. I was so convinced that I was really bad at business. I did not want to do another one, but there were no jobs. This was during the Great Recession, and there were no jobs. And I had a job before I got divorced, and then during my divorce, I had a job. But that company got sold, and they moved all the accounting operations to Colorado, which was kind of fine with me because I hated working for somebody else. I think when you have that entrepreneurial spirit, you're just not able to
Mm-hmm.
do that and take
Mm-hmm.
instruction from somebody else because you're like, I wouldn't do it that way. So that job ended, and I had unemployment. I'm like, okay, I can manage on this for a while because I was used to living very low. So pretty soon my unemployment ran out, and I was pretty desperate when a door opened. Somebody led me to somebody else. And this guy, his name was John, and he owned a small tax prep firm here in this small town where I live in Central Florida. And he wanted to sell because he was retiring. So we went under contract for me to buy his business. And I didn't want to do it, but again, there was nothing else to do. So you take what you can get when you're in that situation. So I went and I found some office space, and it was beautiful, fully furnished office, which was plentiful back then because so many businesses had failed. And I signed a 3-year lease. And the day after I signed the lease, that guy, John, backed out of our agreement and gave the business to his daughter. So there I was with 4 kids, no job, no money, no income, and $650,000 plus a lease payment. But again, you can't give up. What am I going to do? Like just completely give up and cry and give my kids to the state and say, I'm sorry, I can't do it. I'm not good enough. I just wasn't going to do that. And so when you're in a corner like that, you have to get creative. And I did. We had already started Fix It Accounting, which is our CPA firm, when we were trying to make that transition with John's clients. But I decided I was going to just make it work. And so we started trying some things. But when in business, not everything works. And so the first few iterations of what we were trying to do to get clients did not work. But then we hit something, and it was marketing to people who had federal tax liens. And federal tax liens, there were lots of them back then. a lot, because
Mhm.
everybody was having tax troubles because their businesses had failed. They had lost their homes. There was all kinds of need. And I realized that that worked. We started sending these beautiful little, they were like wedding invitation looking letters to these people who had tax liens in our county. And then we expanded to neighboring counties. And pretty soon we're doing the whole state.
Wow.
That is what got us started. And we don't do that anymore, but it certainly was the catalyst that taught us so much about being great accountants and tax and business people, but also got the business started and helped us manage until the economy did recover, which was beautiful.
Wow. Wow. That's such an inspiring story. So, for our listeners that are out there feeling, like they're in that space that you're coming from, what would be your number one piece of advice right now in order for them to get clarity?
Oh, I think clarity comes from within. I think we're a lot of times we as individuals and as entrepreneurs are listening to all the messages that are outside of us. You need to do this. You should do that. Do this, do that. And they're not always in alignment with what your heart says you should be doing.
Mhm.
I know that fixed accounting is in line with my heart because I wanted to be a CPA from when I was about 10 years old, which is weird. I didn't know what that was, but it really does line up with my idea of satisfying life because I get to help so many people in this way. But I think it takes going inward, and you have to like sit down and be with yourself and figure out what resonates with you. Because if you're not in alignment, it's not going to work very well.
Right.
And that's something that I had to learn with the 5 failed businesses too, because they weren't in alignment with what my life purpose is.
Mhm.
And it doesn't have to be something you love all the time. I'm not always in love with accounting and tax. Believe me, there are hard times as an entrepreneur, but it does have to be something you can do day in and day out and get through the harder days. And then it gets easier and easier and easier as you go along. But getting
Mhm.
clear on who you are and clarity on what your purpose is in life is super important.
Mhm. Mhm. Wow. Yeah, I get that. And then for the businesses that you started, did you actually put additional systems in there to kind of safeguard you from or something that says, "Hey, listen, don't expand here or don't do this there," so that you didn't end up in the same situation or similar situation?
On the new businesses,
Mhm.
yes, absolutely. I think well, part of the newer businesses, because I've got a bunch of businesses, we just talked about 2 of them, but because I love business, I could talk about business all day long, every day. I think it's the most interesting topic, and it's the greatest personal growth opportunity we could ever have. Aside
Mhm.
from parenting, those two go together with personal growth. And so I love business so much, and I've got a whole bunch of them. I've actually turned out to be pretty good at business despite the failures because I kept going. I
Right.
didn't give up. I kept going. But yeah, so we when we keep going like that, when we learn to put up the guardrails, learn to put
Mhm.
the systems in place, learn how business works, because that is part of it. You
Mhm.
need systems, you need a steady stream of new clients. You can't just
Mhm.
go, oh, I've got this one client and that's great, and I'll stick with this one, because if that one leaves, you're in trouble.
Mhm.
So you have to put in place all of these systems and all of these ways to measure productivity and to measure, how your business is performing. Those are really important, but those take time. And
Mhm.
so I never had mentors in the first 5 to figure that
Mhm.
out. We didn't do that, which is another reason for failure.
Mhm.
But in these, absolutely, I count on my teams and my mentors. I know now that I can't do it by myself. I was always very isolated before, trying to do everything myself and figure it out because I'm smart. I can figure it out. But honestly, that's not the right approach. We
Right.
all need other people in our lives. We need our coach. We need, people who can
Community.
help us put systems. We need people,
Mhm.
the financial people, the accountant end is
Mhm.
really important. All of those people help form your team because
Mhm.
business is a team sport. It is not an individual sport. And it's also not a sprint, it's a
Mhm.
marathon. So keep going.
Oh, I love that you said that. So, in terms of building your team, who were some of the first people that you put on your team and why?
One of my first and best hires was my assistant. And now you've got virtual assistants. Back then, I had to hire somebody in the office. And actually, I was so scared to do it because it was expensive and it felt frivolous to me. It felt like, oh, I don't need to spend that money because, you're barely hanging on in the beginning. But that was one of the better hires that I made because I could then offload some of that busy work to her. And I was able to focus on my area of expertise, the things that I needed to do. I didn't get lost in the busy. She really helped me figure out what I could delegate and what I should keep. And by the way, she's still with me many, many years later, which we have an incredible relationship. And I think that's part of it is the relationships that you build while you're building your business are so valuable.
Wow. And what are some of the new ways that you're finding now to not just build business, but build community?
I love community because that's a really big deal. I have certainly not perfected that because I'm kind of an introvert. But I think being part of a community is really the best thing you can do for your business because you can learn so much from other people. I have done it within my own office and with my vendors and, the people that help me in my different businesses. But I do encourage anybody that's in business to reach out to other groups and become part of community. And I just did that again for myself lately. I joined a community of people that were doing, I do public speaking, a lot of public speaking. And so I took a class and the members of that class were all high-end entrepreneurs that became beginners. And I loved that mindset because they're all super successful at whatever they were doing outside of the speaking world, even some of them in the speaking world, but then came to this class as beginners. And I think that's just such a beautiful thing to be able to come and learn together. And we formed such great friendships and such great connections that I'll probably be with those people the rest of my life, the rest of my career anyway, which is beautiful.
That is amazing. That is amazing. And is it in your town or are you doing it virtually?
No, the first half, this was a long, hard class. I will tell you, it was speech writing and then the performance of the speech. And it was a 6.5-month class. The first half was virtual. And so we got to know each other online in a group setting. And it was about 28 of us. And then we had to go to New Jersey. I flew to New Jersey 5 times to do this. And it was a tremendous a huge investment for me of time and money, but also the benefit that I've gotten from it has been incredible. So you kind of get what you give into something. So if you're going to do it, put yourself in there, really go all in. And it's not easy. Nobody said life was easy, but everything, when you do hard things, it gives you so much confidence to do more hard things. And it gives you so much resilience to be able to handle hard things that come your way that you didn't ask for.
Yeah. And I just want to touch on a lot of what you said, right? You said what I heard you say is that you're an introvert. You did public speaking and you're on this podcast. So hard to me is one of those things that you're tackling head on.
Yes, it is. So when I first started, and back to the 5 failed businesses, because I didn't put myself out there. I didn't find those connections because I was so painfully shy and I just wanted to be in my own little comfort zone. But just with business in general, you have to get out of that. You have to step out. You have to do the things that maybe aren't comfortable to be able to get the benefit of that. Lots of people will stay in their comfort and sit there and watch TV on the couch eating bonbons. But if you want to be successful, if you want to stand out, you have to do the harder things, the things that don't feel good to you necessarily. I'm not saying don't feel good from a perspective of being in alignment with your values. You do not want to step outside of that ever. But if it's scary, do it anyway, because there's so much benefit. And I have done that. And it helps me pull myself out of that too, because we can be so in our heads by ourselves.
Awesome. Wow. And then what are some of the things that you're now giving your clients to be able to help them, get to that next step?
Well, with Success Your Way, which is our brand where we have the classes, we are forming a community and we are putting a lot of content out there because it's it can be so lonely as an entrepreneur and you really don't know where to turn for good information.
Mhm.
In our CPA firm every day, we see just as a regular occurrence, entrepreneurs who've been put into a situation in their entity structure or their tax situation that does not work for them, that is too big for them. Because small business is very different than big business. And you can listen to a lot of information online that says, whoa, well, you need this kind of corporate structure, incorporate in Delaware, because that's how the bigger businesses do it. Don't do that. Incorporate it in your state. It's so much more simple that way. Do a sole member LLC. We're giving information like this out all the time because it's so vital to small business owners. And I've just seen it over and over again where they have been taken advantage of by someone else and they're in the wrong place and it costs so much to clean up. So this is what we're offering. And I just feel like it's my turn to give back. So many people have helped me along the way. And here I am all these years later, and I've seen so much because we've seen thousands and thousands of businesses inside of the CPA firm. The Success Your Way platform is my way to say, here's a way to do it right from the beginning. And it can help you really be successful in the long run.
Yeah, no, I get you. This podcast is definitely a genesis of that too, right? So just not knowing what I didn't know and then having lost my business and then having to learn systems in order to be able to pull myself up out of that whole thing, it's so incredible. And I love that a lot of the entrepreneurs that I speak to, their rebirth or their new business comes out of something that happened before. And I love the fact that it not just rebirths this new business, but allows them to be able to give back to that version of themselves, right? That was in that place. And I really like that you said that you're actually doing that.
Yeah. Well, I think you come to a point in life where it's important. I'm 60 years old and I just feel like I have to. It's a compulsion. I have to give back because I don't want someone else to suffer the same fate the things that I went through. That was miserable and horrific. And I don't think it's necessary in business. Yes, business is more challenging. It is challenging, but it doesn't have to be so bad.
And I think a lot of it too. Yeah. It's because people keep quiet about the failures that they have because they're embarrassed about it. So they don't want to speak about it. And not sharing means that someone else is going to end up falling in that. So I love that you share that.
Yeah. And I want to be really transparent about my financial problems too, because what we see in the accounting firm is that lots of people have financial problems and everybody that has them feels like they're the only ones. Because what you see on social media is beautiful and everybody's rich and they're flying in a private jet and they've got this car and they live in that house. And it's just not the reality for the rest of us. That is a very staged example in social media that we're looking at. And so we feel bad about ourselves that we don't have that. And I just want you to know it's not true. People don't live like that. That's not realistic. It is if you do something to make enough money to do that, but don't try to be there before you're there. And don't try to feel like that's the destination that you have to be valid, because it's not. And so with all the money problems, I came out with a book just launched in January. It's called Tame Your Money Monster. And it's basically a little parable, a lesson about handling money, because if you can't handle money in your personal situation, it becomes way more challenging in your business, because now you have people that you have to pay, a lot of expenses that you don't have when you're an individual and a W-2 employee. So yeah, that's available on our successyourway.com website and Amazon.com.
Wow. Okay, let me ask you this question. If someone came to you and they said, hey, listen, I'm really thinking about starting a business, and someone told me to go to a CPA first to be able to figure things out before I start this new business venture, what is the question, or what are the questions that you think are vital for them to A, ask themselves, and B, that you would ask them?
The first question they need to ask is, how do I do this? What entity structure should I be in? Which, by the way, don't let somebody talk you into something you don't need. A sole member LLC is like the right answer there, because that is very small. It's the most simple business structure, the most inexpensive business structure, and it can be expanded as your business grows from a tax point of view. Your CPA can do that. And then what do I not know? We actually have a 2-page document that says, here are some things you need to know as a new business owner, because you don't know what you don't know. Oh, you missed getting your business tax license. Oh, you didn't file your tax return when the IRS said you had to. Oh, you didn't do this, or this. So it's just a little checklist to go through for our clients when they are starting a business. And I think it's really, really helpful. But then your CPA should ask good questions of you too. Did you do this? Here's how it goes. Come back to see me when, and here, give you some instruction on that, because it's really important for you to know. Reading it on the internet isn't always the best option. I would just say that information that's out there is all over the place.
Right.
And I am like, oh, they told you that. I hear people saying all the time, well, so-and-so said you could do this, and my CPA wouldn't let me do it, so I just changed CPAs. Ooh, wait a minute. A lot CPAs, some of them will let you do things that aren't legal, but they're not responsible. You are. And when you sign that tax return, that creates responsibility for you. So I would be very careful with that.
That's the thing, right? So you have the opportunity to start a business fairly easy, or relatively easy, let me say that. But you really don't know what that entails. And it kind of relates. So like for us, right? We have a AI automation business, and there's so much software out there, and there's so much AI out there that everyone's like, oh yeah, just plug this in and plug that. But they really don't know A, the guardrails, B, some of the things that you can encounter when you run into it, and all the different nuances, right? Because it's just out there. So for example, you're just starting a business and you're like, yeah, I'm going to do this thing. I find that information is just abundant, but not really the right information.
Yes, that's right.
How do you handle new clients that you have that are like, I want to start a business, and they're coming to you now? How do you direct them and guide them and be like, listen, this is what we need to focus on, and kind of keep them focused on that thing?
Well, all I can do is tell them. A lot of times people don't listen, and that's to their detriment. And I lay it out there. I'm very open with information, but you can't make somebody take it, because a lot of times they don't want to hear it. And that's okay. But I just work with the ones that want to hear what I have to say, because I do have a lot of knowledge and experience with it. And if somebody thinks that they want to go off and do something else, I let them go somewhere else. I'm not going to try to force them. My phone rings off the hook. So I'm not desperate for clients or anything. So I think that they are doing themselves a disservice, though, just saying, if they don't listen to somebody, it's fine to get a second opinion. But I do believe that it's important to have people you trust in your life. And one of the ways that you can find a CPA to trust is look at the Google reviews for them, ask for referrals from other people. There's tons and tons of CPAs. I would avoid ones that are just in business by themselves and don't have a team, because I get phone calls all the time and they're like, oh, my CPA is not answering the phone. Yeah, it was one person. They might have gotten sick. You don't know what happened in their lives. So if you find one that's got a team, it's better. What else? Instruction on that. But again, only work with people that want to work with you. If they choose not to listen, we just have to let them go and wish them well. But I, in my own personal business, find people that I know that I can trust and work with, and I listen to them, not what's on the internet.
Wow. And then how do you, so if you had to go back and give yourself advice, right? what advice would you give yourself, and what tool would you give yourself?
The tool would be community. The tool would be let other people in, because when you do that, you open up. It's like two heads are better than one. When you're all in your own head trying to do everything yourself, you're just destined for failure. But when you get people around you, a community, a team, people who can be a soundboard for you, and just really opens up opportunity. So that would be the first thing. The second thing would be don't give up, because we have to pivot. And that was the thing with the beginning of Fix It Accounting. The first few things we tried didn't work. And I could have said, oh, it just doesn't work.
Right.
And quit and go be a welfare mom or whatever. But that's not in my nature to quit. When I say I'm going to do something, I want to do it. So I just stuck with it. And that was really important to my success. And so I would tell my younger self, do not quit. Keep going. Figure out what works and what doesn't work. Keep going.
Nice. And what tools are you using now, meaning the advancement of everything that's going on with us technologically? What tools are you using and you find like necessary to use on like a daily basis?
Well, you were talking about AI. We use AI on a daily basis. And I love what you're doing, because AI is coming, whether we like it or not. And you, as a business owner, you have to pivot into using that to your advantage so it doesn't run over you.
Right.
And so I think that's a really big tool. And I need to talk to you, because I'm trying to figure out my own situation here at the CPA firm about using that. But we do use it every day, probably not to its best advantage. I know there's much more we could do with it, and I want to figure that part out.
Right.
So yeah, that's a huge, big tool. But there's so much technology these days. I would say don't get overloaded with everything. Pick and choose what works, and get something and stick with it for a while instead of switching all the time, because the switching causes a lot of wasted productivity, wasted time. And probably maybe what you're in is good enough for now until you have to switch. We're getting to the point where we have to switch some things in our tax software, which is fine. We've been in the same tax software for a lot of years, so it's time to figure something else out. But you do have to pivot, but don't pivot too much. Don't keep like throwing things out all the time.
Right. And I do find that in the conversations that I'm having with business owners, is that there are so many tools that they're trying all these different tools. And again, right, so they're trying all these different tools. They're not sure because they're not sure if they're working, because there's no real actual measurement.
Yeah.
Right. For business and for business consultants, what measurement strategies are you using to see what's working from what's not working?
Well, we are on the financial end of things with the measurement. So I really like looking at key performance indicators for that industry, whatever industry the client is, and really working out some things to see how their productivity is going. Everything needs to be trending up all the time, like your productivity, if you're service-based, your revenue per hour of man hours, all of these things need to be trending up all the time. And we're always looking and diving into the financials and doing a lot of analysis about it to find out what products or services are the most profitable and which ones aren't as profitable. So you can pivot away from that, because a lot of times when it's lumped together, you can't see that.
Right.
It needs to be pulled apart and looked at to be able to measure it. And measuring really helps you make way better business decisions.
I love that. Yeah. Nancy, how can our listeners find you?
Okay, that would be at successyourway.com or fixitaccounting.com. And info at either one of those is an email that comes directly to me. So yes, please reach out. I'd love to talk to you.
Awesome. And then for everyone that is online, we will have it on our YouTube platform so they can always connect to that platform. And if they want to contact you, is it okay for them to send you a DM, or how does it work with social?
I don't get DMs. Yeah. yet. Probably that will be set up in the future, but right now I don't look at that. So if you would send me an email, that would be great. info@successyourway.com or info@fixitaccounting.com, and I will respond to you.
I love that clarity, because a lot of times I find that people just go on. So it depends on the age too, right? Their first thing is like, I'm going to just message on social media and not send an email.
Yeah, email is just easier for us to keep up with. Now we have a record of everything that came in, everything that went out. And so that's how we communicate.
Oh, I love that. I love what she said. See, guys, there's a record of everything when you send it through email. Everyone, thank you so much. Nancy, thank you for being our guest on our show today.
Thank you for having me. I enjoyed it so much.
Likewise.